Fantastic.
So fun.
Excellent.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, everybody's jumping on and Sarah
Yay,
just finished it an
Sarah.
hour ago. Oh, yay.
Nice work, Sarah. We love.
Yeah, I blew through it about 2 months ago. I read it in a night. It was fantastic. It's awesome. Can't wait to chat about this book.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it is 8:00. So it is our monthly author discussion. And tonight we have Rebecca Serle, who is the author of One Italian Summer. She also wrote In 5 Years, which I know a ton of our members have read and loved. And there was a lot of buzz and hype about your book coming out this year. So super excited to have you. And, for those that might not know, I can see your poster right behind you. You're also the author of Famous in Love, and you adapted it for television, which is super exciting. So congratulations on that as well. Maybe we'll have a little bit of time to kind of just chat about adapting for television, because that's people always love to hear a little bit about that. But congratulations on all your success. We're very appreciative that you're taking the time to chat with us tonight. So welcome, Rebecca. And so let's get started. I had the pleasure of kind of discovering you sharing your story recently. I found it on YouTube, a little bit about your story with your mom, about a trip that you took, and the impact that it had. And I think it served as the inspiration for this book. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that with the group in case people aren't familiar?
Yes, of course. So I'm not going to waste, it sounds like most people have either read or are familiar with what One Italian Summer is about. So I'm not going to waste time walking you through that, but I will say it's a mother-daughter love story. My last novel, In 5 Years, was very much a love story between two best friends. This one is really a love story between a mother and a daughter. And in the summer of 2019, I took a trip to Italy with my mom. And my mom had always talked about the summer that she spent in Rome, and she fell in love with this man named Remo and just had this really fantastic time. They went to Positano also. And she'd always just talked about it. And we'd never been to Italy together. So we went back in the summer of 2019, and we ended up finding Remo on Facebook. And they met at the Trevi Fountain. We got his WhatsApp contact and figured it all out. And they met at the Trevi Fountain, which is the place that they had met 50 years beforehand. And he brought her this charm that said love on it that she had given him 50 years before, that he had kept for 5 decades, which is wild. And we ended up sitting in this coffee shop that was the bar that they had met. It was across from the Trevi Fountain, the bar that they had met at 50 years beforehand. And he was very cute. He was like, "You go home and your mama stay in Rome." And I was like, no, my mom's like very, very married to my dad and she's going home. But it really just got me thinking, my mom was kind of like nervous when she was getting ready and asking me how she looked and all these things that my mom is just, that's not who my mom is. And it got me thinking about the women that our mothers are before we get to know them, and what it might be like to spend some time with them, what it might be like to spend a summer with them, particularly if you had lost them. So, and then I went on to Positano after that, and the place was begging to be written about. So that is how the story came to be. And then I actually wrote the book a year later. I wrote it from April to July of 2020, when, that infamous time when none of us could leave our homes, and I kind of wanted to be somewhere else.
Yeah, and so that's a perfect segue, because I also knew that you had written it kind of really in the start of the pandemic, and I'm sure it probably served a little bit as an escape for you to, kind of transport yourself to a beautiful place, and to try and focus on writing. But at the same time, it could not have been easy. I mean, I know you had been there, but it couldn't have been easy to recall all of the details that you provided in the novel. And I have to say that was just the descriptions and the details, and you truly felt like you were in Positano, with Katie and Carol and the characters. And so how did you do that? I know, at the end of the book, you referenced reaching back out to staff at the Hotel Poseidon, but talk a little bit about, had you taken detailed notes when you visited Positano previously, or how
Yeah.
did you recreate that?
So the first thing to know is that In 5 Years came out on March 10th of 2020. And I was in New York, at Good Morning America that morning. And I had been planning on going on like a 14 city book tour. And I made it to the second stop, and then I got sent home and the world shut down. So, and we hadn't yet pivoted to doing all of this stuff that we get to do now, right? Like we didn't, there wasn't a way to just pivot to virtual. So I had this like really free chunk of 2 months that I had planned on promoting In 5 Years that I now really wanted to just fill with some kind of escapism. I was very stressed out and really, upset about what had happened because we'd all poured so much time and effort and work into In 5 Years. So I just wanted to be somewhere else. Google was definitely my friend. But one thing I will say is that I did not know that I was going to set a book in Positano, but on my last day there, I spent about 6 hours just walking around town and taking video of all of the different streets. Which is always how I know that my brain is it wants to remember things like the way they are situated in time and space. Because I think it's one thing to just look at a map or look at photographs of that trip, of which I took a lot because the light there is sensational. It's impossible not to. But the video was really helpful for me to see, okay, like how does this town move? Like what streets sort of fold into others? That's kind of how I wrote, by just remembering and re-remembering.
Well, yeah, as everybody just said, I mean, you really, truly, as a reader, felt like you were there. So it was really incredible. So let's talk a little bit more kind of about the mother and daughter relationship, because that's really, I think, the center of the book. There's obviously romance, and we'll talk a little bit about her marriage and some of the struggles she's facing, but at the core of it, she loses her mom right at the beginning of the book, and they had the trip planned, of course, and she faces that dilemma of what does she do, and she's really quite lost, and so I think happily she chooses to go, and I'm sure that's what her mother would have wanted her to do as well. So, and then she arrives and suddenly discovers that mom is there with her, and I paused kind of for a moment, and I was like, okay, wait, no, wait, wait, did I miss
Yeah.
it? Like, is this a time traveling, or like how did that just happen? But I loved kind of how you worked her into the story and as this character, and that Katie didn't really necessarily realize immediately that it was in fact her mom. And so talk a little bit about how you kind of crafted that idea. Did you always know that they were going to meet back up, or how did you craft that? Because it was
We
really,
we
really
have
unique
a
and
little
interesting.
mother and daughter who joined us. Hi.
Ah.
Hi, Liz's daughter. Um, I so yeah, I think that I believe, and I guess you guys could tell me at this point in my career as I go forward, I think that my readers have gotten a little bit accustomed to there being sort of this like odd magical element. In the dinner list, Audrey Hepburn and her dead father are at a birthday dinner for her. In 5 years, she gets to live an hour in her future, and one time summer she gets to spend the summer with her 30-year-old mom. So there's always a little bit of suspended disbelief in my stories. And I also think that, my stories, like my books, really deal with love and with grief, which I think is just like an unexpressed love, right? I read this really cool quote yesterday that was talking about how grief is like the final act of love. And I think there is a lot of, particularly in those very early months of trauma, there is a lot of like magical thinking in a way in those first early months of like, what if this, what if this, what if this? And so the sensation of being like so raw in that space, it just felt like it would lend itself really well for this kind of conceit. But like I said, the book really came to me through that experience with my mom. I thought that would be so interesting to be able to spend a summer with your mother and being the same age. And then I kind of went from there. I think the trick for me with magical realism is to not spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about it and trying to sort out the why. It doesn't really matter. I hope if I do my job well enough that after maybe a stutter step, you guys will just kind of come along with me. This is the story that we want to tell. This is the world that we inhabit. And I think spending a lot of time explaining can sometimes just take away from that magic. people often ask me if I think that my books are, dreams. I personally don't, but if you do, I think, once a book gets published, it kind of belongs to the collective. It belongs to all of us as much as it belongs to me. And if that's what you feel is true, then that's totally fair. It's not, I think that all of these things really happen. And I like the idea that there's sort of magic on the periphery. And also, I really wanted to tell a story about a young woman who so idolizes her mother, who really believes that this woman has every answer, who believes that she just has the blueprint for her whole life. And, Katie's journey is really understanding that no one has the blueprint for our life. Like, nobody knows what we are meant for more than ourselves, not even our own mothers. And there is a lot of grief, even in not even losing our moms, but in that idea, right? And the idea that we are the ones that have autonomy over our lives, that at a certain point, our moms don't know better than us. Not for you, Liz's daughter. Your mom still knows best for you. But like this is part of it. This is part of growing up, is taking responsibility for our own path. And so I really wanted to write a story of a young woman who goes through that. I think Katie is very young when we meet her. She primarily identifies with being a daughter. She doesn't really identify that strongly with being a wife or being a woman or being a friend or any of those things. And I hope we bring her more towards those identities as we go and when we leave her.
Yeah, and I think so that's kind of the next topic I wanted to touch upon, and you kind of mentioned it, with your personal story with your mom, but it's that concept of understanding that mothers are women first and foremost, and that they have some of those needs and wants and desires that I think daughters don't necessarily know to understand about moms and their mothers. And it's an interesting transition. I think, I'm raising, my daughter's a 15-year-old right now, and so I feel like we're getting to that point where she starts to, she's becoming a young woman and has, things that she's going through, and starting to really understand that, oh wait, maybe maybe mom's got things like that going on too.
Yeah.
But I think you did such an amazing job of depicting kind of her. She was so close to her mom, but in a way she was so kind of sheltered and naive. And even though she was married, it was very simple. And I would say her marriage to Eric initially is just easy and kind of, it just seems like that was her natural course, and she never really up until her mother's death gave much thought to what she wanted or what she is as a woman. And so, I think that's what you did such an incredible job of kind of coaxing out of her, in a combination between her mother and the encounters with her mother as her contemporary, as well as then the introduction of Adam, kind of as a prompt there in Italy. So kudos to you. I think that was really fantastic, as far as I, when people ask me what's the book about, I'm like, it's about becoming a woman and figuring out what that really means.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about there's a scene where I think, as I recall, they take a walk. She and her mom take a walk up the stairs, and talk about the magical a little bit. But for me, I was kind of like having an image a little bit of that she came down kind of from heaven, and those were the stairs, and she kind of led her to how they were kind of being able to interact in a little bit. And did you have did those stairs represent anything for you, or is that just my interpretation, or
I
did you have
really
any
love
meaning there?
that. I really love that. I think that's so beautiful. I often say that I think that writing is part magic, and
Yeah.
that's not my intention. But if you sort of, I think our job oftentimes as authors is not. Stephen King talks about this. How writing a book is not building a house, but in fact like removing the excess clay to reveal the statue that was always there. And I think that idea is so beautiful. And like if you stay in step with the work, if you stay in step with the book, then those moments will come. And most of them are not intentional, but I think that's really lovely. Like the book is sort of peppered with both magical realism, obviously with her mom, and and it being the past and all these things, but in addition, just like the real magical myths of this seaside town, the myths of Positano, how this place came to be. And so there's a lot of just like overlay of this mysticism to that place. And I really I love that idea, and I also think that Katie's narrative of her mother and who her mother really is and what their relationship was are a little bit different. Like, I think that Katie really feels like, oh, my mom made every choice for me and my mom was right. And none of the things I've chosen in my life, I chose, my mom chose them all. And I think, when we leave Katie, like, it's not the idea that actually now she's going to make her own choices and she wasn't before. It's that she was making her own choices, in fact, all along. She just wasn't taking ownership of them. She wasn't narrating her life that way. And now she put herself in the driver's seat to be like, oh, I was in the driver's seat all along, but now I'm like opening my eyes and recognizing the true responsibility that I have always had over my life. And, like you spoke about your relationship with your daughter, I think like, as we get older, both parties, both mothers and daughters, have to let go a little bit and understand that we need to give each other autonomy, right? Like, what's best for your life and I know what's best for my life. And I think, daughters can be just as impactful on mothers, and mothers can be on daughters, like, this is how you should be. Like, I know, like, I'm constantly bossing my mom around. She's like, excuse me, like, I've been at this for a while, like, I'm good. So I think that there does need to be a softening on both sides in order to allow us to be the women that we really are meant to be.
Yeah, and I think when Katie kind of realized that maybe her mom wasn't perfect and she had to find her own way, I think that kind of helps in that, right? I think, and then I think that understanding also gave Katie the confidence to know that she doesn't have to be perfect either, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes a
Wasn't
ton of
perfect.
sense.
Yeah, she
Yeah, exactly.
Carol, and young Carol is like, young Carol is screwing up all over the place, and young Carol has made this like cardinal sin of motherhood. And yes, I think that does free up Katie to understand that ultimately, as you said at the beginning of our chat, like, mothers are just women. That's it. We're just
Right.
women and we're
Yeah.
human.
Yeah. And so let's talk about Adam, because then there's a line that he says, kind of early in their getting to know each other, where I think he says, never trust someone who has not had their heart broken.
Mm.
And that to me is, and again, another core, theme of this book, and not just in a sexual relationship, but also obviously with, the loss of a loved one and a parent, but how you evolve and you grow, and, kind of the, everything that comes from having your heart broken, the strength, the courage, the will to go on, if you will. So, Adam, I think, played a really important role, obviously, for Katie. And let's just talk a little bit about him, and then obviously the difference between he and Eric.
Yeah, I think, Adam is a little bit more world weary than Katie or Eric have been. He's been through some things, he's seen some things, and he is really the polar opposite of Katie in the way in which he has chosen to center his life around just himself, not his family, not anything, but like where he is and what he wants to do and what he wants his life to be about. And that is really compelling to Katie, because she's someone who centered her life around all the people surrounding her. And she's like, when we meet her, when she shows up in Italy, she really doesn't have a center. And he's like, hey, this is where it is. It's right here. So that's I think it's a very like romantic, like I said, compelling characteristic for her. And I think that Adam actually, like, I think one of the, I don't want to say lessons, but one of the things I think the book is really about is that we can take the magic home with us, and that the magic, in fact, is at home. Like, the magic can be in family, the magic can be in quiet moments, the magic can be in commitment and steadiness and dedication. The magic isn't just in like fancy vacations and close your ears, Liz's child, like, great sex in Italy and all of these, like, big epic things. The magic really can be in family. And so I think Adam, Adam is somebody who has led that very like outward big life. And and that the other thing I think, and listen, I know readers who had problems with this in 5 years, and I know readers who have problems with this in One Italian Summer, because Katie is certainly married. There's like there's no, you can't argue that fact. But I think that, I think oftentimes states of grief make us do things that are a little bit out of character. And I also really believe that, to me, like morality and fidelity are not necessarily the same thing, and nor do I think that it is my job or is the most interesting story for you to read, to just read a book about somebody who just, makes every moral choice. That's not what human beings do. And
Right.
so in a way, I think personally that there is no return to Eric without Adam, that there is no, that, we talk a lot of and say about grief that the only way out is through. I think part of that is this experience. Like, she needs to go there. She needs to see what else is out there, because she never has before. And that seeing, that expansiveness, that openness, that allowing herself to have these experiences is what allows her to return home and to want to return home.
I couldn't agree more. It was, I think him extracting some of those wants and desires out of her that helped her to ultimately realize that maybe she could get that at home too, like with Eric, right? And to give him a chance to, she's never demonstrated some of these wants and desires, to give Eric the chance. So that was, really interesting to me, I think, as far as that goes. Talk a little bit about kind of the role that the men play in the book, and even Katie's dad, because that I felt like the role the men played was really kind of interesting. And was that did you have a plan there?
I think that Katie, I think Carol, and I'm totally blanking on Katie's father's name.
Oh, it's right here.
That's embarrassing.
Oh no, that's all right.
I think that, Katie's parents, Carol and her husband, have a very traditional, what we would call a traditional marriage. Her father is the one who's made the money, and Carol is the one who's sort of been his like helper,
Right.
and helped create the life surrounding that and made them a home and all of these different things. And I think that, I think Carol feels a little underappreciated, and I think Katie realizes like, oh, we actually didn't appreciate everything she contributed to our life. We didn't actually see her for like the amazing artist and decorator and designer that she was while she was here, and why not? And I think like, listen, like my stories are about women. They're narrated by women. Like my stories are first person narration. So this is Katie's point of view. And I think that these are also two women who committed to marriages and to lives with men like relatively young, maybe, or relatively young for them, before the point in which they were fully formed. And so a lot of their growing has had to happen inside of these relationships, which can be like very rewarding and also very challenging.
Right.
So, I think men in a lot of ways in this book are kind of on the periphery. I believe they also were in 5 years. That novel was very much about Danny's relationship with Bella, and, David and Adam David and Aaron were very much sort of like the foils for that. And I think that in Time Summer as well, this is Katie and Carol's story. And so Eric and Katie's father and Adam are all like, they're like the reflections of these two women. It's about them.
Right. And I think the situations that they're in that prompt the women to dig deep and kind of find themselves, if you will. So yeah. Does anybody in the group have any questions specific to One Italian Summer that you want to ask? Because I do want to just ask some questions about if there's plans for adaptation for this. And I just wanted to chat a little bit about who was your favorite character to write?
Young Carol. Young Carol was a lot of fun because she's so carefree and adventurous, and Yeah, she was a lot of fun to write. So her. And I think that, I think Adam was fun also, because the stakes for him are so low in some ways of his life that he's so, yeah, they both were very carefree, and it's fun to write characters who aren't super weighed down.
Yes, for sure. Jody would like to know what inspired you, or how did you decide to write with magical realism in your novels?
When I was in grad school, I wrote these magical realist short stories. And I remember my first short story that ever got published was about this couple going through a breakup, and time physically like actually stops. And I found that magic was such an interesting metaphor to get to just like really strengthen and expand a world, and allowed us like an interesting sort of trapdoor almost to a different level of metaphor. Like you actually got to live in the metaphor. And I thought that was so interesting. And then I went and I did young adult, and I wrote a book called When You Were Mine, and then I wrote Famous in Love, and I did all these other things. And then with the dinner list, it was a little bit of a return to form. So I like it because I think it lets us just play. Like you could write a book about a young woman who's lost her mom, who goes to Italy to like retrace her mother's steps. And that would be lovely. That would be a lovely book. But you get to hit to the core a little more obviously and intentionally when you get magic. It's like, okay, instead of her retracing mom's steps and finding mom's letters, we actually just get mom.
And as an avid reader, I'm gonna throw out that I love the fact that we didn't have to read an extra 300 pages of how that magic kind of speeds up the book,
Yes, it does.
and gets you engaged so much quicker.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to read sometimes like 100 pages of the backstory of how we get there, and let's go,
Cut to the quick.
So yeah, I mean, that's why I love to be able to read a book in a night, and in especially something like this where you can truly appreciate it, and I didn't have to put it down and come back to it. It was perfect for that. So I'm super appreciative of the magical realism as far as that goes. Okay, we had another quick question here. Let me just see. Let's see. Jen Clonch wants to know, why is Katie's enjoyment of food in Positano so important? Because it's so good, right? No.
I know. Well, it's Italy. I think that this story is really a book about a young woman coming back to life. When we meet her, she's sort of she's a little bit of a shell of herself. And part of coming back to life is getting fed back to life. And so food becomes this like really sort of like incredible life force that we get to give her, and we sort of get to like feed her and watch her, watch her resume her life, like watch her just physically return. And it was just really like, it was so fun to get to write about all of those beautiful dishes and to remember all of that gorgeous pasta and wine. And place just in my books in general is very important to me. So it's part of the like sensuality and mood of the place is the food of the place.
Oh, for sure. So hopefully you have a trip planned back.
I do. I'm going this summer.
Oh, fantastic. Take me with you.
Fingers crossed, I'm going this summer. I will take you all with me on my Instagram. So
oh, please do. We can't wait to see all those pictures. So I did want to also transition. Were you involved in selecting Laura Graham for narrating this for audio?
Yes, I was so unbelievable. We have a mutual friend in common, actually, Jen Smith, who wrote The Unsinkable Greta James. It's a great book. And she introduced Lauren and I, and then Lauren very kindly said that she would do the audio, and it was just sort of like a perfect marriage. Especially because the book opens with a quote from Lorelai Gilmore, which is so funny. It's such a like a meta strange moment to hear Lauren Graham reading the quote from Lorelai Gilmore in the book, but she was really lovely and said that this book very much felt like an extension of her work, which was honestly just the nicest compliment anyone has ever given me. So yeah, I feel so grateful that she got to do it. Her voice is just so beautiful.
Yeah, I have to go back. I'm waiting on via Libby to listen to the audio just so I can hear her read it. It's actually something my daughter and I did during COVID, was to watch Gilmore Girls together. So so fun. So any plans for a screen adaptation? I mean, this screams movie.
I know. Yes, I think you will be hearing news about that. Sooner rather than later. These things take a while to come together. But yes, I think we all feel that this would make a really fun film. So
Awesome. And we always like to ask the question: will you be involved, or will you have a say in casting? And as you write, do you ever envision anybody, or is it just in your head?
I don't necessarily write with particular, like, they're really sort of my own characters, and they're like a watercolor, honestly, at best, of what people look like. But yes, I'm like very actively involved in all of my adaptations. We just announced a movie for In 5 Years. I'm not writing that, but I am producing that. So I will be, involved in every major decision that gets made for that film. And with One Italian Summer, it's possible that I may write that, in fact. So we'll see. But they will all, I think, for all three of these books, the hope is that they will be very close adaptations and stay very much in the spirit of the novels.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Does Mama's any votes for who plays Katie or Adam or Carol? Let's hear what you have to say. Well, we chat a little bit about. So, you're based in LA, and you're also very busy with Famous in Love. So congratulations on that. And just talk a little bit about the difference between just writing a novel and then, kind of being involved in, the adaptation and the move to screen. What is that like?
Screenwriting is so much more like mathematical and mechanical than novel writing is. It's also so much more collaborative. There's so many voices that you have to, there are producers on the project. There's a studio. There's a network sometimes if it's TV. There is just, there's budgetary requirements, and there's people in every department, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people involved in making a television show or a film, whereas in a book, there's really just me. And so there are two like very, very different universes. I think that for me, writing a novel just feels like swimming in just an endless ocean. Like I could just go forever, and it's so luxurious and lovely because it's just open seas, and I can express my creativity however I want to. And then with television and film, they're a little bit more constraints, but I think that they speak to each other and they help each other. I honestly think that writing Famous in Love, like writing a television show, has helped me enormously with dialogue. Like I don't know if I would have necessarily been able to write The Dinner List, which is primarily a book that takes place half or of 6 people just talking to each other at dinner, without writing for TV too. So hopefully they're complementary skills and they talk to each other, but they're very, very, very different universes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're seeing the chat, but that's a good one. So someone suggested Ryan Reynolds to play Adam, so
I like it
for that. And then Kate Hudson for Katie. That's a good one. I like that. That's a good one.
I like it.
So are you working on your next novel yet, or you're pretty busy? So have you had time, and what's that timeline look like? Can you tease anything?
I am working on my next novel. I can't give you a timeline. It probably won't be for another 2 years. I don't think that we'll see any new books from me next year, because we'll have to publish, hopefully we'll publish the paperback of One Italian Summer and keep on with that. And this book's so like nascent, so new in the world. So I want to be able to give it its life, just like we did for In 5 Years. But yes, you will see another book from me. I'm working on one now. It'll just take a little bit of patience.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm very confident that this will be kind of the summer beach read that I think a lot of ladies and moms will certainly be recommending. I know I've recommended it to everyone's like, what, I'm going on vacation, which I read. I'm like, oh, easy.
Yeah.
On Italian summer. You'll read it in a day, you know, have another book. But so what are you reading and recommending right now? What are you loving? We always love to ask our authors that
show
question
you
too.
actually, because they're on my desk.
Oh.
My dear friend Grant just published Let's Not Do That Again, which I absolutely loved. He wrote The People We Hate at the Wedding. And why am I blanking on his titles are always so unbelievably good. But anyway, it's like a very cool, like, political family drama. I just think he's an excellent writer. I love it so much. So I just finished this. And then I'm reading the new Jen Weiner. It comes out, I think, in like 2 weeks or something. I think 2 weeks. The summer play.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we're doing like an event together next week. So that is what I just finished reading, and that's what I'm currently reading.
Oh, fun. Yeah, Jen joined us last summer. Actually next up for me, that's what I'm going to read. But hopefully we'll get her to join us again this summer as well. People are raving about the book, so I'm excited to read that. So, oh, there's Jen C already posting the books. She's so efficient. So I know you have a tight deadline, and I just wanted to be very courteous of your time. So before I let you go, anybody have any last minute questions for Rebecca?
Questions? Anything I can answer? I'm loving this chat. I'm doing a little scroll.
Oh, what was your favorite part of the trip with your mom and your favorite part of the book?
My favorite part of the trip with my mom was honestly probably meeting Ramo and seeing her with him. And there was this one moment where we like got up for coffee and we left, like we were leaving, and I just saw him like watching her across the street. He was waiting for the bus because he lives a bit outside of Rome. He was waiting for the bus to take him, and we crossed the street. And I just turned back around and I just like saw him just standing after her. And it was so unbelievably tender and heartbreaking in a way. It's just a moment that I'll really take with me. And my favorite part of the book is the final conversation between Katie and Carol, when Carol asks her, like, is it true what you said? Did I leave you? And Katie says, no, you never did. So I like cried when I wrote it. And that's my favorite part.
I loved how you resolved that. Yeah, I was like, how's she going to bring this? How are we going to wrap this up? And it was perfect. Oh, yes. Everybody's saying thank you. This is so fantastic.
You guys, this is so lovely. Oh,
wait, there was one more good question in here. Let me just see. It was a good one. Let me just grab that really quickly. Oh, I wanted to know, what did your mom think of this book? Did she love it? Was she so honored that you wrote about kind of her? She loved it. She loved it. She was the first person who read it before my agent, which never happens. And she loved it. And she actually we had like virtual components to all of my events, so she got to watch a lot. And then she surprised me. I did an event at a bookstore it was like a luncheon hosted by Warwick's Books and the Library Guild in San Diego. And my mom surprised me. And so she just like walked in the middle of the event, and it was really fun. And we got to sort of like have lunch and cocktails with the ladies after. And then mom got to answer a bunch of questions, and that was really cute too. So. That's awesome. We should have invited mom.
She would love it. Mom's very adept at Zoom. She'll Skype right in.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you can see all the thank yous. People love In 5 Years. There was so much excitement about this book and when it came out. And a big thank you to Ariel for, of course, getting us advanced copies and for the giveaway that we were able to do. And of course, a huge thank you to you, Rebecca, for taking time out of your schedule. I know it's a busy day today, so a huge thank you to you. And we will, of course, continue to recommend One Italian Summer. It's a 5-star, one sitting read for me. I can't recommend it enough. So
thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you for reading together. I love that you all do this. It's so special. So thank you, and I hope you'll invite me back for the next one.
Please, please, we will be cheering for you and anxiously look forward to seeing some of these books right on the big screen as well.
Yes. Okay. Good night, guys.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.